Every day for almost 40 years, the Heath family was tormented by questions about what happened to Wayne Dee Heath, a loving father and war hero who disappeared without a trace during a fishing trip in 1986 in the serene waters of the Snake River in Idaho. Years later, when hope seemed all but lost, a single forgotten piece of evidence held the key to unraveling this decades-old mystery. What followed was a breakthrough that would stun investigators and finally bring the answers that had eluded Wayne's family for so long. Born and raised in Idaho Falls, Wayne graduated from Highland High School in Pocatello in 1967. Shortly after, he enlisted in the Army in 1968, serving his country with distinction as a helicopter mechanic during the Vietnam War. His bravery did not go unnoticed. He received awards for his service, including a commendation from the White House for saving lives under fire. After his military service, Wayne settled back in Pocatello, where he married Wanda Mendenhall and started a family. He was a loving husband and father to his children, deeply involved in their lives. Wayne was a man whose love for the outdoors was matched only by his devotion to his family. He was extremely passionate about his hobbies, which included fishing. Little did anyone know that a simple fishing trip would set off a series of events that would become a waking nightmare for the Heath family. April 1st, 1986, started like any other day for Wayne Dee Heath. He and a friend decided to take advantage of the pleasant spring weather and go fishing on the South Fork of the Snake River, just below the Palisades Dam in Bonneville County. It was a favorite spot for many locals, known for its scenic beauty and plentiful fish. Out on the river, fishing just below the Palisades Dam, the two faced an unexpected and tragic accident. The boat's anchor rope became entangled in the propeller, causing the vessel to quickly take on water. The situation turned dire in a matter of moments. Both men abandoned the boat in a desperate attempt to swim to shore. Tragically, Wayne never made it to the shore. Witnesses reported seeing him disappear approximately a quarter of a mile downstream from the dam. Despite extensive search efforts involving divers and search dogs, his body was never found. The disappearance of Wayne left his family and the community in a state of shock and sorrow. The Bonneville County Sheriff's Office launched a thorough investigation, conducting multiple searches of the river and surrounding areas. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and eventually months into years. Wayne was presumed to have drowned, but with no body or definitive explanation to what really happened. The case grew cold, but the memory of Wayne's disappearance never faded. For his daughter, Nicole Heath, the pain was especially acute. She was only 11 years old at the time, and the loss of her father left an indelible mark. As she grew older, Nicole dedicated herself to preserving his memory, compiling photos, articles, and family history in a black binder she carried with her everywhere. She visited the Snake River every year, hoping for closure, but finding only more questions. Then, in June 2009, a seemingly small but significant breakthrough occurred. A local resident, while fishing in the Snake River near Heiss in Jefferson County, discovered a human tibia bone on a sandbar. The bone was turned over to law enforcement, reigniting hope in the long-dormant case. It was sent to the University of Texas Health Sciences Department, where researchers worked diligently to extract DNA. By January 2013, they had rendered a DNA profile for the tibia and entered its genetic data into the Unidentified Human Remains Index of CODIS. But the journey to identify the remains was far from over. The bone remained unidentified for another 11 years, highlighting the often slow and meticulous nature of forensic science. In February 2024, the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office received a crucial notification from the University of Texas. The genetic data associated with the tibia bone had been linked to family DNA reference samples from Wayne Heath's natural son and sister. Advancements in DNA technology and the accumulation of genetic data over the years had finally reaped the rewards investigators had been hoping for years. Nearly 4 decades after his disappearance, Wayne Dee Heath's remains were identified. This discovery allowed detectives to close the case and provide long-awaited answers to the Heath family. For Nicole, it meant a semblance of closure. The mystery that had haunted her since childhood was finally resolved, and she could find peace knowing her father's fate. The sheriff's office said, "The Bonneville County Sheriff's Office is grateful for the assistance of the University of Texas, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, Idaho State University Department of Anthology, and the Ada County Coroner's Office in resolving this case." The sheriff's office continued, "We recognize the importance of providing closure and answers to families who have missing loved ones. This case is a great example of partners and resources who work hard to apply advancements in DNA and technology to these cases decades later. Our hope in this instance is relief for the Heath family and peace of mind." In the stillness of a February night in 1977, a mother's worst nightmare unfolded. What began as a routine evening for 14-year-old Maria Honzell, babysitting her neighbor's children, ended in a brutal and violent crime. Nearly 5 decades later, a breakthrough in DNA technology finally unraveled the mystery, bringing justice to Maria and closure to those who loved her. Maria Loraine Honzell was a vibrant 14-year-old girl living in Colorado Springs. Known for her kindness and responsibility, Maria often babysat for neighbors in the apartment complex on North Nevada Avenue. On the night of February 7, 1977, Maria was looking after her neighbor's 2 children, a task she had performed numerous times without incident. The neighbor checked in with Maria earlier in the night, and everything was seemingly normal, but when she returned home around 11:20 p.m., she walked into a scene of horror. Maria was found in the master bedroom, lifeless on the floor, with multiple stab wounds to her chest and neck. The children, aged 6 and 8, were found asleep in their beds, unharmed and unaware of the tragic events that had transpired. The gruesome discovery prompted an immediate call to the Colorado Springs Police Department. Officers arrived swiftly, initially responding to what was reported as Maria possibly taking her own life. That changed when officers arrived at the scene, which clearly indicated a violent case of foul play. The initial investigation revealed little in the way of solid leads. The young son of the neighbor provided a chilling account to the police, recounting how he had been awakened during the night. He walked out into the hallway and witnessed a male figure holding Maria's mouth and taking her into the master bedroom. The suspect, described as a white male around 17 years old, 6 feet tall, with acne, and wearing a fluffy blue coat, blue jeans, and black sneakers, vanished without leaving a clear trail. Despite the harrowing eyewitness account and the immediate efforts of law enforcement, the investigation soon hit an end. Evidence collected from the scene, including a bloodstain on Maria's jumpsuit, was carefully preserved, but without the advanced forensic technology available today, it led to no significant breakthroughs at the time. Years turned into decades, and Maria's tragic case grew cold. The community held on to hope, but as time passed, the prospect of justice seemed increasingly elusive. Maria's family continued to mourn, their pain compounded by the lack of answers. In 2019, more than 4 decades after the violent crime that would take Maria's life, a ray of hope emerged. Advancements in DNA technology had revolutionized the field of forensic science, allowing investigators to re-examine old evidence with new methods. The bloodstain on Maria's jumpsuit, long preserved in evidence storage, was submitted for analysis to Parabon Nanolabs. Using cutting-edge techniques, they developed a detailed suspect profile from the DNA sample. The profile was then compared against entries in public genealogy databases. This method, which had recently gained prominence for solving other cold cases, finally provided a match: William Charles Kernan Jr. Kernan, a student at a local college at the time of the slaying, had been an acquaintance of the woman Maria was babysitting for. He had been to the apartment complex on multiple occasions, making his presence there on the night of the crime plausible. Kernan had passed away of natural causes in 2010, and his body had been cremated, leaving no direct DNA samples to confirm the match. Despite this, The genetic genealogy results, combined with the contextual evidence, gave investigators confidence that they had identified Maria's perpetrator. On May 8, 2024, the Colorado Springs Police Department made a public announcement. They declared the case of Maria Honzell's tragic demise solved, identifying William Charles Kernan Jr. as the perpetrator. Although Kernan could not be brought to justice due to his demise, the resolution of the case brought a measure of closure to Maria's family and friends. The statement from CSPD read, "The family and friends of Maria Honzell have waited over 47 years to get justice for Maria. Through years of analysis and investigation, CSPD is proud to finally provide answers to Maria's loved ones." District Attorney Michael Allen emphasized the relentless pursuit of justice by law enforcement. "We do not stop searching for justice for victims. If there is someone out there that has committed a crime and has not been caught yet, we are looking for you. We are going to use every technology that develops over time to find you and bring you to justice." David Honzell, Maria's brother, said, "They have come through for us. I hope for other families it can be the same." He also said, "I've been on the phone probably once a week for the last 5 years, calling, and they have come through for us." Tracy Thompson, a cold case detective with CSPD, said, "It can be difficult because you want to provide information. You want to give the family good news. And when you are talking to them and constantly telling them, 'I am sorry, I do not have anything right now,' breaks your heart." In a small town west of Niagara Falls, a mystery that had eluded detectives for a quarter of a century was finally unraveled. The brutal slaying of 26-year-old Nadine Gurczenski, discovered in a roadside ditch in 1999, had long been a haunting cold case. But with the advent of cutting-edge genetic genealogy, investigators were able to connect the dots and reveal the identity of the elusive perpetrator. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, the haunting truth about who was responsible for Nadine's tragic fate came to light, bringing both revelation and closure to a grief-stricken family. Nadine Gurczenski was a 26-year-old woman from Toronto, Canada. Known for her vibrant personality and warm presence, Nadine was not just a daughter, wife, and mother. She was also a cherished member of her community. Nadine's life was marked by her strong connections to her family. Although she and her husband, Paul, got divorced, they remained in contact and raised their children. On May 8, 1999, Nadine Gurczenski's lifeless body was discovered in a roadside ditch near Victoria Avenue and 8th Avenue in Lincoln, Ontario, a small town west of Niagara Falls. Nadine, who was partially dressed, had been strangled to her end. Her body was found by passers-by who alerted the Niagara Regional Police Service, NRPS, to the grim discovery. The initial investigation into Nadine's tragic case was complex and challenging. Police quickly identified her from images of her face that were shared with the public, but finding the person responsible proved elusive. Detectives focused their efforts on piecing together a timeline and establishing Nadine's movements leading up to her demise. They suspected that the perpetrator was a truck driver, given the nature of the crime scene and Nadine's work at a strip club, which might have brought her into contact with transient individuals. Investigators canvassed truck stops between Niagara and Mississauga, where Nadine worked, and scrutinized potential suspects. They also collected and analyzed DNA from the crime scene, uploading it to national and international databases, including Interpol. Despite their efforts, no matches were found in the existing databases. In 2006, police investigated Michael Durant, a suspect linked to other violent crimes in the area, but he was eventually ruled out as a suspect in Nadine's case. Michael's connection to the case was dismissed, as there was no evidence linking him to Nadine's violent slaying. As the years went by, the case went cold, with no new leads or breakthroughs. It was not until 2021 that significant progress was made. The NRPS, in collaboration with the Toronto Police Service's Cold Case Unit, the Centre of Forensic Sciences, the Chief Coroner's Office, and Ontario's Ministry of the Attorney General began using advanced genetic genealogy techniques. DNA from the crime scene was sent to a specialized laboratory in the US, which used genetic genealogy similar to consumer DNA testing services like Ancestry DNA or 23andMe. The lab created extensive family trees based on the DNA profile, narrowing down potential suspects. In 2023, the investigation zeroed in on Joseph Archie Raymond Brousseau, a truck driver who had worked in the Niagara region. Although Brousseau had passed away in 2017, investigators obtained a DNA sample from his remains and compared it with the DNA from the crime scene. The match confirmed that Brousseau was responsible for Nadine's demise. Further investigation revealed that Brousseau had traveled extensively and had connections to the Niagara region, aligning with the initial suspicions about the nature of the crime. He was 34 at the time of the slaying. Detective Staff Sergeant Andrew Neville revealed, "Being a truck driver, we were able to determine that his trucking routes brought him in and through the Niagara region. He was a trucker throughout Canada and the United States, and we were able to determine that he utilized some of our roadways in Niagara, which could lead to his familiarity with the area." The resolution of Nadine Gurczenski's horrific case after 25 years brings a measure of closure to a long-suffering family and showcases the importance of the remarkable advances in forensic science on cold cases. While Brousseau's demise makes any legal accountability impossible, the breakthrough highlights the dedication of law enforcement and forensic experts who tirelessly worked to solve the case. Nadine's family expressed their gratitude to Niagara Police in a statement and fondness for new technologies that progressed the closure of the case. "We want to recognize that Nadine was an incredibly important part of our family. She meant more than a news headline. She was a beautiful young woman inside and out, mother, wife, and now grandmother who had her whole life ripped away from her and everyone who loved her. She is very loved and missed every day by her whole family, and we will always make sure her memory lives on forever." In a quiet corner of Bothell, Washington, a haunting mystery lay dormant for nearly 3 decades. On a fateful April night in 1993, 15-year-old Melissa Lee vanished from the safety of her home, only for her body to be discovered the next day, discarded and left to be forgotten in a ravine. The case eventually grew cold. That was, until the relentless advances of modern forensic science resurrected the case from obscurity. The clues hidden in genetic strands and discarded cigarette butts that would finally help unmask a predator. Melissa Lee, a vibrant and hopeful 15-year-old from Bothell, Washington, was a young life full of promise and potential. Melissa lived a content and simple life, and no one could have predicted the terrible fate that awaited her. On the evening of April 13th, 1993, 15-year-old Melissa was alone in her home. Her family, her mother Sharon Lee and her mother's boyfriend Gary McClellan, had gone out for a night of darts and karaoke. Melissa had planned to spend the evening with her friend Krista Stromberg, but Krista's babysitting job extended later than expected, leaving Melissa by herself. At around 9:30 p.m., Melissa spoke briefly with her mother on the phone. This was the last known contact she had before her tragic end. The house was found in disarray when Sharon and Gary returned home. The front door was ajar and the lock broken. Inside, the living room was in a chaotic state. The coffee table was out of position, an ashtray was overturned, and a glass of milk had been spilled on the floor. The pet macaw was found outside its cage, indicating a struggle had taken place. Melissa was not at home. Sharon, realizing something was terribly wrong, reported her daughter missing to the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office around noon on April 14th. The family's concern quickly turned into a full-scale search. Later that evening, at approximately 6 p.m., a passerby walking across the Edgewater Creek Bridge in Everett noticed something unusual about 60 feet below in a ravine. Initially mistaking it for a mannequin, the passerby soon realized it was a body. The discovery was made on the north side of the bridge, in a remote and rugged area. The Snohomish County Sheriff's Office arrived at the scene and identified the body as Melissa Lee. Her clothing was found disheveled. She wore salmon-colored shorts and a San Jose Sharks sweatshirt. An autopsy conducted by the Snohomish County Chief Medical Examiner revealed that Melissa had been manually strangled. Toxicology tests confirmed the presence of chemicals, often used as anesthetics or solvents. The crime scene, combined with the evidence from the autopsy, pointed to a brutal and calculated attack. Melissa's body was discovered in a location that was both secluded and significant, underscoring the premeditated nature of the crime. The early stages of the investigation focused on several leads. Alan Edward Dean, a 35-year-old resident of Everett, who had met Melissa through a talk-line service, quickly became a person of interest. Dean, who used the alias Michael, was interviewed 3 times in 1993. Despite his murky connection to Melissa and his questionable alibi, he consistently denied any involvement in her slaying. His statements and demeanor raised suspicions, but the lack of concrete evidence tying him to the crime meant investigators had to explore other avenues. Another potential suspect was Melissa's ex-boyfriend. He had an alibi provided by his parents, but conflicting information from his new girlfriend led detectives to scrutinize him further. Even with these discrepancies, his alibi held up under investigation, and he was eventually cleared of any involvement. The technology available was insufficient to match the DNA evidence collected from Melissa's clothing and the crime scene with any known suspects. The absence of advanced DNA databases and the limited capability of forensic tools meant that the evidence, though crucial, could not directly link a suspect to the crime. The absence of direct witnesses and the disarray of the crime scene made it difficult for investigators to establish a clear timeline or motive. Without additional evidence or witness statements, the investigation struggled to gain momentum, and the case grew cold. In 2018, the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office decided to employ genetic genealogy. The DNA evidence collected from Melissa's clothing and crime scene, which had been preserved for years, was re-examined using modern technology. The state's crime lab and Parabon Nanolabs, a pioneering DNA technology company, played crucial roles in this process. A digital file containing Melissa's DNA genotype data was uploaded to a public genetic genealogy database. Through this database, genealogists were able to identify potential relatives of the suspect, creating a family tree that eventually led to the identification of Alan Edward Dean as the primary suspect. Dean, a 62-year-old resident of Bothell, Washington, was linked to the crime through his familial connections, identified via genetic genealogy. Dean had been a person of interest since 1993 due to his previous interactions with Melissa, but the forensic limitations at the time had prevented his connection to the crime from being established. The breakthrough came when detectives obtained a discarded cigarette butt from Dean, which he had carelessly left behind. This cigarette butt provided a fresh DNA sample that was matched to the genetic profile from the crime scene. The confirmation of this match solidified Dean's status as the primary suspect in Melissa Lee's slaying. On July 28, 2020, Dean was arrested near his residence in Bothell. The arrest was carried out without incident, and he was subsequently booked into the Snohomish County Jail on charges of first degree. For Melissa Lee's family, particularly her mother, Sharon Lee, the long-awaited development was a bittersweet moment. During a press conference held the day after Dean's arrest, Sharon expressed her deep emotional relief, stating, "I am so happy I got to live long enough to see this happen. I hope he rots in hell." The trial, in March 2024, would ultimately determine the full extent of Dean's culpability and the appropriate legal consequences for his actions. On March 28, 2024, he was found guilty by the jury, and on April 24th, he was sentenced to 26 years in prison. At trial, Dean appeared emotionless and did not testify, but at the sentencing, he leaned forward in his wheelchair and exploded in rage. He claimed that he was innocent, that he was framed, and that the state took the life of his daughter. He said, "I am innocent, not guilty." No one ever came forward after 30 years. I did not go near that girl. They planted that DNA. I have been framed. I do not care what you people say. He did not explain further what he meant about his daughter. The trial was delayed multiple times after Dean's arrest in 2020 due to findings about his mental health. Melissa's sister, Kelly Littlejohn, said in court after the sentencing, "My sister has been gone longer than she lived. I only have years of memories with Melissa, but unfortunately, we are reduced to only saying, I wonder what she would be like today." Melissa Lee's case, solved after nearly 30 years, is another case that shines a light on the progress in forensic technology and the determination of investigators.